I've been reflecting on the state of the world, the tension, the division, the sense that something is fundamentally off balance. It feels like people are more divided than ever. There's a lot of finger pointing. Some say it's the government, others blame the media, those in power, or the people resisting the system. But all of this keeps us trapped in a loop of blame and separation. This isn't the first time we've seen this. Throughout history, society has fallen into the same cycle over and over again. We tolerate systems, sometimes corrupt, sometimes oppressive, because we believe they're giving us peace or security or at least some degree of comfort. We don't want to face what's really going on as long as it feels bearable, as long as we can convince ourselves that we're safe. People often enter these systems, government, media, tech companies, with optimism. They come into believing they're making a difference, or they will make a difference, change things for the better. Maybe they'll even carry in some idealism with them. But these systems are built on layers of control, tradition, and fear. They're bigger than any one individual. And so once inside, even the most well-meaning people realize that if they try to change the status quo too much, they might bring everything down. They feel they have to keep the system running even if they don't agree with everything that it does. Otherwise, the whole system could collapse. This is where compromise begins. Or otherwise, they themselves will be in danger in some way. But here's where it gets more complicated. Many of those who start with good intentions eventually become seduced by power. The system offers them control, a taste of influence, and the more they have, the harder it is to let go. They tell themselves that they're still doing good, but over time they become part of the very system they once wanted to change. And it's not just about compromise. Some individuals intentionally harm others. They pursue power, control, and profit at the expense of others' well-beings without any remorse. They're not insane, they're trapped in their own delusions, driven by their ego, convincing themselves that the harm they cause is somehow justified. But how do we let this happen? How does the collective consciousness allow individuals like this to rise to power? It happens because our collective state of consciousness, our acceptance of the status quo, creates fertile ground for these actions. The systems that allow harm to flourish are reflections of the mass consciousness. And this isn't about blaming ourselves for the actions of others. It's about recognizing that we live in a society that hasn't yet transcended these patterns. The way forward is through the evolution of our individual consciousness. Each of us individually. Each of us has a responsibility to cultivate the garden of our own mind, our imagination, because what we allow to take root there shapes the collective. And when we evolve individually, the mass consciousness must follow. We begin this journey as the fool, what we call unconscious incompetence. We're part of the system without even realizing it. We don't see the deeper cracks in society's structures. And when we don't realize the role we're playing in it, At this stage, we're moving through life unaware. But then something happens. Maybe it's a piece of information or an experience, and suddenly we see the flaws in the system. The veil is lifted. This is the moment of awakening, what we call conscious incompetence. Now we see the cracks, we see the corruption or the control or the illusion of peace and comfort that we once believed in. But awareness at first doesn't feel empowering. It feels unsettling. It can make us feel lost, delusional, or angry. And here we're faced with a choice. Do we stay in this frustration, in this cynicism, or do we move forward and grow? Many, when they first wake up to the truth, fall into cynicism. It's easy to think, I see it all now. I'm awake. Everyone else is still asleep. But this is where arrogance creeps in. And if we stay in this place, we get stuck. We stop growing, we become bitter, we blame the system, we let malevolence whisper in our ear and seduce us, blaming others, but never moving forward. Some even withdraw from society altogether, stop voting, stop believing that anything can change. it's all a dead end. But here's the higher choice, the hero's journey. Instead of staying stuck in cynicism, we choose to transcend. The hero's journey teaches us that the darkness we see in the world is a reflection of the darkness we have to confront within ourselves. At first, we don't even realize we're part of the system. We're unconscious. But once we awaken, we have the chance to rise, to face our inner challenges and grow. We're now responsible for the new information that we have. It's not easy, but it's the path of real change. And we see this story everywhere. It's in movies, it's in literature, it's in mythology. Stories of the hero rising against the system, people waking up to the truth around them. We're drawn to these stories because deep down we all recognize this cycle. It's part of our collective consciousness. These archetypes repeat themselves over and over, not just because they're entertaining, but because they reflect the deeper struggles playing out within us and within society. When things get tough, people often feel that taking up arms, choosing the path of revolution, is the solution. It's a natural reaction to the oppression and control we see in societies. But here's the problem with revolution. It's a cycle. We tear down one system only to build another that ends up looking just like the last. We end up repeating the same patterns of division and control. The power changes hands, but the structure of control stays the same. That's why I'm talking about evolution, not revolution. Instead of tearing down the system with violence, we evolve beyond it. We transcend it. This is about rising into a higher level of consciousness, of awareness, where we no longer need to fight the old, but we move beyond it altogether. This is the real call of the hero's journey, to rise above the cynicism, to recognize that we're all in this together. Even those who seem lost in power and control and atrocities are playing their part in this story. No one is beyond redemption. The challenge is to transcend the ego's need to blame and look inward. When we identify with awareness, that part of us that sees the bigger picture, the part of us that's eternal, at very least throughout our lifetime, we begin to act from a place of divine understanding. This is where real change begins. This isn't just historical. It's happening right now. In places like China, Russia, Iran, and Brazil, governments are cracking down on free speech, censoring information, controlling communication. We even see it in the United States, shadow banning on social media, or companies like Facebook being pressured by the government to suppress certain information. Media selling their narrative without multiple sides to the story. In Brazil, for example, using X through VPN can now lead to $8,000 fines daily. These are just symptoms of a larger system of control. We've seen it with fear-based control of mask mandates and social distancing, the pressure to conform. Maybe these things had their place at one time, but it's undeniable that fear was used as a tool. Do this or you're endangering society. This is what happens when power structures push back. They chip away at our freedoms. And unless we're aware, we don't even realize how much control we're giving away. The way forward isn't through more conflict. It's through changing what we plant in our imagination. The systems we live under, the division, the control, they're all reflections of what's been allowed to grow in our collective conscious. Fear, blame, distrust, these are the seeds that have been planted and we've let them grow. We think it's easier. We think it's keeping the peace. But now we're seeing the consequences of those seeds taking root. This all happens within the scope of awareness. And here's the key. When we identify ourselves as that awareness, that part of us that sees beyond the ego, the awareness is the stage on which our lives play out. That's when things start to shift. Awareness is the eye that cannot see itself, or it's been likened to the knife that cannot cut itself. It's beyond the ego. It's beyond fear. When we're rooted in awareness, we step out of fear, out of reaction, and into clarity. Here's something important to remember. Chaos can feel frightening. but it's also an opportunity. When systems begin to break down, it creates space for us to shift direction. In a way, this is part of a divine prerogative. It's how real transformation real transformation happens. When the old structures start to collapse, we're given the chance to evolve into something greater. When the chaos begins, that's when we have an opportunity to shift directions. Otherwise, there's no reason to shift. Our imagination itself is the womb of creation. It's been likened to the Christ itself is the connection, is the bridge between the human and the divine, is the imagination. When we plant there, what we plant there grows in the world we live in, no matter what. Tend to your garden, plant the right seeds, because the power to change starts with what we have cultivated within ourselves. This isn't about us versus them. We are all part of the same journey. The time has come to transcend the ego, to rise into our highest potential. The power is within us. Thank you. Hey, if you like this content, please feel free to like and subscribe and share. And visit us at ericsmindset.com to check out our mindset shop. All sorts of goodies to get our minds on the road, on track to what we're looking to create in this world. And it's our duty. Thank you.